On the verge of Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, I did a video for Swan Bitcoin about conferences. And it was lighthearted, talking about a conference curse claiming Bitcoin always dipped during a popular Bitcoin event in America. Is that true? False? I don't know, and I don't care. This year, I'm going to talk to you again, but with a bit more sincerity this time. Green screen down, theatrics muted. So look, this ain't travel advice, but as for myself, I'm no longer a fan of the large Bitcoin conferences. So let this one run in the background as you work out or do chores. It's not as many graphics in this video, more of a from the heart episode. Follow me as I go down memory lane with my experiences and my opinion on the utility of these events. We'll discuss the good, the bad, and the crypto. It's Ser Ulric, and are you down with the underground? Now I gotta ask you and give a reply back in the comments. Do you plan on going? And I'm talking about the Bitcoin conference, Las Vegas, Memorial Day week. And if you do, what for? Now, if you're mesmerized by thousands of people congregating for technology, you should go at least once. You're going to be surrounded by more people that are at least somewhat aware of what Bitcoin is than you're ever going to be. But it's not Bitcoin heaven. You're going to see many people that are there just because they're paid to be. Yep, like some booth babes, you're going to see a few tall blondes, maybe an inch too short for the runway, apathetically manning a mining booth, desperately waiting for the Maxim after party. And salesmen, you're going to see hundreds of them, 3 to 5 per booth. And what are those booths selling? Wealth management, hosted mining companies, and for those that don't know, it's essentially custodial, ruggable mining, crypto custody providers, fiat bank products, you know, the kind of stuff that actual Bitcoiners don't really need, at least not at a Bitcoin conference. And the people these companies bring to close deals are definitely not interested in Bitcoin, rather they have eyes on your Bitcoin. But despite those people, are there not thousands of real Bitcoiners? Absolutely. But these regular people, these honest people, does it really cost $300, $500, $700 to congregate with them? And to the fabled LobbyCon concept, why do you need a corporate sponsored event to get together? Maybe because LobbyCon is an excuse not to admit what those thousands of people are truly attending for. And here's a hint. It's not Bitcoin and it's not Bitcoiners. And look, I understand. There's something novel about meeting someone you see many times on a screen and then they're right in front of you. It's surreal, and in fact, it actually has a name. It's called the mere exposure effect. And people are looking to experience this by attending an event like this. But it's not to see you. They're looking to see the influencers in the wild. And don't tell me I'm wrong. You say signal and energy, but I was walking the floor in 24. It was dead and apathetic. And I couldn't say with an eye test what group of people is larger, the booth staff or the retail attendees. It was like everyone was in a haze or distracted. But what were they distracted by? Well, they were looking for the people they came to see, the influencers, but they were nowhere to be found. Where were they? Well, due to the increased notoriety and importance of many of these individuals, those that once walked the floor and went from one stage to another or various meeting rooms are now in a secluded area of the main stage room. And the main stage, due to the influx of extra important politicians, looks like a TSA line after we already had a bag check just to get into the event. It's like 3 or 4 different events all rolled into one, and the participants in each now rarely ever interact.
I want to take a break real quick and just say that there's only so much you can learn through videos. Yeah, build your knowledge, build your skills, but you need to build your relationships. Relationships plus skills equals money. So come build your relationships and your knowledge at the Bitcoin conference, May 27th through 29th in Las Vegas. I'm going to be there speaking for the 4th year in a row, and lots of other people way bigger than me. Entertainment, politics, media, finance, you name it, they'll be there. So come check it out. Save some money with my code MarkMoss, or I'll put a link down below. If you use my code to save some money, I'm going to do a private meetup just for you and some of my friends. So let me know, use that code, save some money, send me a message, and we'll get you in the private meetup, and I hope to see you in Las Vegas. Guys like Mark Moss and Peter Schiff.
So look, let's take a pause. What's a good reason to go? Well, if you're looking for an opportunity in the crypto finance space, that's a perfect chance because there are plenty of crypto startups seeking to get attention and grow at ironically an event called the Bitcoin Conference. So you want to work for a company whose product is literally Ethereum or Solana, that's on you. And I know someone who worked for Luna, he thought that was going to last too. And for the newbies and those not in the know, the Bitcoin Conference in 2023 accepted about $25 million in sponsorship revenue. And yeah, that's when Bitcoin was worth about $30,000 a coin, way less than it is now. And if I remember correctly, my source said that about 90% of that was sponsorship from crypto and fiat projects. Bitcoin Magazine is a classic example of I like Bitcoin, buy my fiat. And while the young employees who work there for peanuts and passion will often resonate with the virtues of money without rulers, the BTC Inc. executive team led by David Bailey surely doesn't give a you-know-what about your revolution. But they will sell you a magazine that talks about it. Additionally, if you are an influencer that's seeking to grow through politicking and under-the-table networking, you can try to squirm your way onto the Bitcoin Magazine news desk, where nobodies with some Bitcoin and an ego believe this will make them a star. And this is the holy grail. It's more achievable than being a keynote speaker. That's only saved for politicians and CEOs. And it's more important than the common interview where those 25-minute talks that you're so familiar with, you know, the ones with 5 people on a small stage, that will give you a chance maybe to awkwardly give your drop the mic moment in front of maybe 50 semi-interested nerds. Yeah, it's kind of bad. The news desk is like the Bitcoin Iron Throne for an influencer's moment of opportunity to cosplay as a professional communicator, only to look like an absolute amateur compared to the company's former employee, Pete Rizzo. And really, I'm not kidding. I'm not simping. He's better than all of them. It's laughable.
Bitcoin 2024, powered by Bitcoin Magazine. I'm your host, Pete Rizzo, editor-at-large of the Kraken Cryptocurrency Exchange, editor of Bitcoin Magazine, and Bitcoin historian on X. And of course, folks, this is it. Day one of the largest Bitcoin conference in the world is beginning behind me in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to be a day.
This platform is so coveted and it drives people so insane that, you know, there's this one time I was trying to be nice and went to get a friend of mine a coffee to get them ready for the Iron Throne, the news desk. But when their big moment was cut from the schedule, you know, that's Hollywood, right? They stormed off, leaving me holding their coffee as I was returning with them not there, and not to hear back from them for the rest of the trip. Priorities, right? Love you. So let's reel it back. Look, it wasn't always like this, but what changed is the fact that Bitcoin Magazine and comparable conferences thought that in order to be successful, you had to justify Bitcoin's presence and affirmation by outsiders, by people with success in irrelevant industries. Like, think about this. If you have a conference about basketball, who are you inviting to speak? Players, coaches, writers, announcers, all of whom are very adept and spend much time in the hoop space. You're not inviting chefs, not inviting great plumbers. Guess what? You're not inviting Michael Saylor to speak. They can watch, but not speak. So why do politicians that know nothing about Bitcoin speak at Bitcoin conferences? Athletes and comedians that don't know anything about the protocol are on stage talking to you guys. Why dilute this opportunity to educate people on the importance of this technology for the sake of giving them someone that would be easily seen elsewhere with a Google search? But all the conferences or wannabe conferences mimic this formula. Why does Thank God for Bitcoin have a conference with Bitcoin speakers that are atheists, or pastors that do believe in God, of course, but are definitely not interested in Bitcoin? Why would Swan promote LA Bitcoin Week and co-brand with Fred Krueger, the guy who has continually shown his willfulness to play in crypto land as much as any Ethereum NFT show? You know, if you can't make a Bitcoin-only conference profitable, ask the question if you should have it in the first place. Look, there are some bad things about these conferences, and I mentioned a few of them, but there are some good things too. And I have some really good memories I want to share that came about because of some, dare I say it, divine order of events. At Miami 22, running into Anders before we were close friends led him to introduce me to a bunch of people that I followed and appreciated. Jeff Ross, Greg Foss, Lawrence Lepard, Pubby from Toxic Happy Hour, and I exchanged phone numbers with Lepard, and Foss bought me a ticket to the Breed Love and Jordan Peterson side event. And side note, I'm glad I didn't pay for that one. But from there, Anders told me to catch an Uber to a house party that he was going to, hosted by Neil Jacobs. And the first two people I saw was Phil and Nico, the two hosts of the only Bitcoin show that mattered to me in 2022, Simply Bitcoin. And that led to a relationship as a multi-time guest on their show, back when they had plebs and not sketchy financial influencers like British Hodl. And I developed a reputation as a decent speaker and argument writer. So that was noticed by Corey Clipston, who liked those talents, and of course I could play some basketball. And after meeting him at his conference in 22, I wrote a couple of articles on his Swan blog, and that led him to offer me some part-time work on his YouTube for 8 months doing Swan originals. Now, after the Swan halving, aka the 50% layoff and reorg, I had some groups that wanted me to work with them, but in the end, I decided to go with my buddy Phil, aka Coin Icarus, where I am now and couldn't be happier. So if I didn't go to conferences, I wouldn't have had a chance to have that story that took place over the course of 3 years, or taken a picture with Michael Saylor, or cultivate a relationship with Mike Hobart and Shane Hazel, or be on stage for a few minutes with Jeff Booth and James Lavish, or meet my Bitcoin basketball brothers Big Sean Harris and J-Dub, or do the Bitcoin Ballers show with Q. If I didn't go to the conferences, I would have never done the Declaration of Monetary Independence at Miami 22 and 23, which was a very popular interactive exhibit on the conference floor. And I have to admit, having people recognize me on the street in Nashville for the work I did at Swan, it felt nice. And sometimes you just don't know how far your voice can travel. And yet still, the direction of the big Bitcoin conferences are no longer a place of wonder or novelty or unique interaction. All you can expect now is a partitioned event where the main stage entrance is log jammed by heightened security that discourage any of your favorite personalities from leaving that area for the entire time, as all their inclusive seating and meeting rooms are all cordoned off to minimize their movement. And if you're just a normal attendee and you get into that main stage area, those seats are a premium and you'd be crazy to leave them as you get them. And if you think that's bad, the worst part is the politicians and the famous people in other industries are becoming increasingly aware of how thirsty the Bitcoin demographic is for allies and heroes. And just take a look at the speakers lined up for any major Bitcoin conference. If you didn't know they were Bitcoiners, it's likely because they aren't, and they're only there to collect more followers and to get their loyal fans hardly interested in Bitcoin at all to buy conference tickets, for affiliation kickback. Worked perfectly with Donald Trump, Eric Weinstein, Jordan Peterson, RFK, and the list goes on. What can they say about Bitcoin that you can't see elsewhere? Well, come to think about it, nothing, because these people only mention Bitcoin to Bitcoiners. Weird, right? At these conferences, you are the product, but unlike normal ad-supported pricing models, you are also expected to pay hundreds of dollars, not to mention travel, accommodations, and satellite events. No thank you for me any longer. Look, if you're on the fence about going, just go. If you're a bright-eyed Bitcoin influencer fan, remember that most of the people you're thinking about seeing in the flesh and blood are there because of what acquiring your future attention does for their career. A vast majority are not there to help spread Bitcoin education. And despite what I say, some people just have to see it for themselves. Maybe after what promises to be the most political, most elitist, most custodial Bitcoin event ever, you'll see what I see. Or maybe you just like being abused.